Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Swami.
Yeah. So what we discussed in the last class?
We discussed about the Friday duplicate page, how to create a duplicate page and hiding a page and ribbons. We discussed about the in ribbons file
Okay.
all are and
Okay.
in home page copy cut paste. These are the explain yesterday.
Okay. 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 So next one is we need to discuss about the format painter, right? So in format painter in home tab, okay. So 1 second. So 1 second. Yeah. See, what we need to discuss here it is, see, there is a format painter option is there here, right? In home tab, you will have an options like cut, copy, paste, format painter, everything is there, right? What is a format painter? Format painter is nothing but, okay, if I want to copy the design part of one visual to another visual, then we have to use an option called format painter. Okay. So suppose for example, I have one thing is there. Okay. Suppose for example, I created a visual. So this is the visual I created here itself. Okay. So in this country wise sales, yes. Product wise profit and this. So what format painter here it will do is, suppose for example, I want to design this particular visual. Okay. So I design this. If I want to design this particular visual, what you need to do? You need to select that particular visual and where we can design it in the format painter, we can design it, right? Okay. Ravindra, can you please put on a mute? Okay, so what will happen here it is, so what is a format painter? Suppose if I want to design this particular one, okay, so that means if I want to design this particular one, in the group itself recording will be there. Okay, if I want to design this particular visual means first you need to select that visual and design means in the format painter is there. This is the format one. Okay, if anything, if in the design part, if I want to change anything in this particular visual means you need to come to the format and here you will have a different options are there, x-axis, y-axis and everything. Suppose for example, in x-axis, I want to increase the size of that particular one. Okay, suppose for example, suppose I'm increasing like 50 like this, and I'm increasing this one. So what will happen here? So I'm doing some changes here itself. See here. So like this, I'm increasing the size of this particular one. What y-axis values are there? Here, I'm putting y-axis as country column here. Okay, that means this country column. That means in that particular visual, whatever column I'm putting into that y-axis, those column values you can see it here. That means United States of America, Canada, France, Germany and Mexico. That means I'm putting a y-axis as a country column. Under that particular country column, what values are there? Those values we can see it here itself. Okay, so if I want to change any y-axis related thing, then you can go here y-axis, and here I'm changing. I don't want title name. See, if I remove it, then the title will be removed. So in the last class, okay, after completing a Power BI, that means in the last class in the Power BI desktop, we need to discuss more about these visualizations. But just changes in that particular visual. Okay, so in this, here in the values, if I want to increase this one, okay, suppose like this, and if I want to change the title name of this particular visual, then you need to come here and okay, suppose for example country wise total sales it is. So what will happen here it is, so I'm giving a title name what I need to enter. So and here I'm changing the font of this one. Okay, so and font is, this is the one I'm changing like this. Okay, and I'm putting alignment as center part. Okay, and the text color is white and background color is this one. Like this, I'm selecting this one. So if I want to change any design, so I'm changing the design part of this particular visual or not. Okay, the same design part, if I want to apply it to the other visual, if the same visual is there in another page or in the same page itself, okay, if the same design part, if you want to apply to that particular visual, means it will take a lot of time, right? Instead of that, okay, so just to select this particular visual and click on format painter, and to which visual you want to apply this for design part, so you have to go to that particular visual and just click on this one. Then see, automatically the design part is applied here itself. That means what will happen here it is, so if you design any particular visual, if the same visual, okay, but data is different here. See here I'm showing a country wise total sales, but here it is showing product wise total sales. Yeah, product wise profit related values it is. That means two different values is there, but the visualization is same. If the visualization is same, then if you design one particular visual, the same design part, if I want to apply it to the another same in any other page itself, or it is in the same page also, if you want to apply it, then what you need to do is, first you need to design this particular visual, and after that, and you have to select this particular visual and click on format painter, and to which visual you want to apply the same design part, to go to that particular page itself and click on that particular visual, then automatically that design part will be applied. If the same without having this option, if you want to apply, means it will take some time, right? Or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But instead of that, directly we can select this particular visual and apply this particular format painter, and to which visual you want to apply it, then the design part of this particular visual will be copied to that visual. Suppose for example, I want to apply this design part to another page visual. Okay, suppose select this particular visual and click on format painter, wherever this visual is there, so I want to apply this particular one. Okay, in page one visual I need to apply it. Click on this one, see, then automatically it will apply it. Understand? That means if you are designing one visual, if the same design part, if you want to get it to the other visuals, means first you have to apply the design part of the visual, and by using format painter you can copy the design part from this visual to that particular visual itself. Understand or not? Okay, so but there is a drawback in format painter. What is the drawback is, if it is the same data is different, okay, data, it won't take care about the data, but it will be applied to same visuals only, not for different visual. Suppose if I'm here, I'm using as a clustered column chart. This design part I need to apply it in a particular table or something like that. So this is a table, right? This is a table visual. So I'm applying that design part to here itself. Okay, see, nothing will happen. That means this format painter will work only for same visuals. Okay, if you take with a if you want to apply the different visuals, format painter means that here it won't work. Okay, so while you are applying the format painter, must and should you need to apply it with the same visuals only. Okay, if you go with the different visuals, means it format painter won't work. Is it clear or not? Okay, is it clear, Deepak? Deepak, is it clear or not? Ravindra?
Clear. Hello. Yes, sir. Clear.
Yes, clear.
Ajit? So this is about the format painter. Okay. Next one is get data. Okay. This option will be there in the home tab. You will have an option called get data. Get data is nothing but in this get data, there are different data sources are available here itself. Okay, to whichever data source you want to connect it, and click on select that particular one and click on that one, load the data into the Power BI. Okay, so biggest advantage in Power BI is there are 200 plus data sources are available. Okay, so all those data sources are available under get data, and whichever data source you want to connect it, select that one and connect the data and load the data into the Power BI. Okay, suppose, so if you want to create a report, means you need a data, right? That means you need to connect to the data source itself. If suppose for example your data is there in SQL server, you can connect to the SQL server. If your data is there in Azure, you need to connect to the Azure. If data is there in Salesforce, means Salesforce, you need to connect it and load the data here itself. That means whichever data source you want to connect it, means you those data sources are available under get data. Okay, in get data, click on more. Okay, when you click on more, what will happen here? You will see there are number of data sources are available here itself. Okay, Vijay, did you explain about each and every data source? Means I cannot explain it, because for each and every application having a licensed version, right? So we cannot purchase all the licensed version and everything. So okay, just three data sources I will explain you. One is Excel, another one is folder, another one is SQL Server. Okay, these three data sources I will explain you, but in your organizational, whichever data source you want to connect it and select the data, and you have to know how we need to connect to that particular source itself. Just pull the data. Just you have to know, suppose your data is in there in Azure itself. You don't know how to connect with Azure. Then what you need to do? Just hello. Sorry, I'm not interested. I'm in a meeting. Okay, that means so which suppose you don't know how to connect to the data to this Azure itself, then you have to know in a Google itself or some other location or else in your team itself how we need to connect to this particular data source. For that you have to know it, and after that you need to connect it and load the data itself. Okay, once the data is loaded into the Power BI, after that you can do all the operations in the Power BI itself. Okay, so just you have to know how to connect to that particular data source. Not only in this course itself, anywhere if you go, it means they cannot explain all these data sources. Okay, these all are licensed versions only. Only few data sources whichever having doesn't have licenses, for those data sources only we can explain it. Okay, so how we can connect it, just we need to show it. Understand? So in this get data we can see all the data sources are available here at here itself. Whichever data source you want to connect it, select that particular one and connect it. That's it. Okay, suppose I need to connect to the Excel. Then what you need to select? Excel here and click on connect it. Once you click on connect it, it is asking the path, it is asking where the Excel file is there. So you have to go to that particular location itself. Okay, in downloads folder. Okay, sorry, suppose for example, I'm placing the Excel file in the downloads folder itself. Okay. So what I need to do, I need to go to that particular downloads folder, and whatever the Excel data is there, that Excel you need to select it. Once the Excel unit, once you select an Excel, then under the Excel there are number of sheets are there or not. Suppose for example, okay, when you open that particular Excel, okay, in that there are a number of data source sheets are there. Okay, see here in this there are different sheets are there or not. In all these different sheets, what we need to do is one of the sheets you need to connect it. If you want to connect all the sheets, means you can connect it as per your requirement. So that means, see what will happen here after connecting to the Excel, which sheet you want to connect it, that you need to select it, then automatically only that particular sheet data only loaded into Power BI. Suppose for example, you need to go to this particular Excel. After selecting an Excel, so what tables are there here? That means under the Excel, what sheets are there? Those are available here itself, and whichever sheet you want, you can select those particular tables here. I need, suppose for example, I need to connect this dim data. Okay, and select that particular one, load the data. Okay, then you have a question, Vijay, can we select a multiple sheets once at a time here? Yes, you can select it. Suppose I want to select the dim location. That means whatever tables you want, these are, we can call it as tables or data sets. Okay, whichever data sets you want to load the data into the Power BI, you have to select it here itself. Okay, that means dim location city, dim product, like this. So these four tables you need to select it and click on load it. Okay, once you click on load it, then what will happen here? That means whatever tables you are selected, those tables are created in Power BI. Understand? See, whatever tables you are selected, those tables are available here. That means when after connecting to that particular data source, you need to select the tables here. Once you select the tables, so at a time you can select multiple tables also, or else you can select one table also. Based on your requirement, you can select n number of data sets. Once you select it and click on load. Okay. So after selecting a particular data source, okay, I'm connecting to the Excel. Once I connected to the Excel, you will have an options like, see, once you select a particular table, at least if you select one table, these three options are enabled here: load, transform data, and cancel. Okay, what is load and what is transform data and what is cancel? Suppose whatever table, this table you are getting, right? In this table, if you want to do any modifications on that one, okay, in this particular table, if you want to do any modifications on this table, then what you need to do, you need to go with the transform data. That means what modifications is there means, suppose for example, you want to remove the columns, you have 10 columns are there, I want only 5 columns, remaining 5 columns we can delete it, right? Those where we can do these operations. Or if you want to replacing some values, okay, under the data, under the column, you will have a different values are there, right? In place of that one, if you want to replacing a value, then what you need to do, you so all those, if you want to modify anything on the data level, then you have to click on transform data, then you have to click on transform data. Okay, in transform data, these all the data modifications options are there available in the transform data itself. Okay, so if you want to do any modifications on the data level, then you have to use an option called transform data. Okay, so understand. So if you want, if there is no modifications on that one, suppose for example, you don't have any modification, then what you need to do? You need to click on load. Once you click on load, whatever table you are selected here, that table will be loaded into the Power BI model. Okay. In the model, can we do the modifications? No, means no, we cannot do it. We cannot do the modifications on the model. Okay. So that's the reason they are giving another different option, that it is transform data. If after getting a loading the data into the Power BI, if you want to do any modifications on that particular data level, then you have to go with the transform data option. Okay, if you don't want to do any modifications on the data level, then you have to click on option called load. Okay, if you click on cancel, then what will happen? This window will be closed. Is it clear or not? This window will be closed. Cancel means that window will be closed. Understand the difference between load, transform data, and cancel. Suppose, for example, I want to remove these columns. First, I need to remove these columns. Again, I want to load that. Okay. Suppose, for example, so again, I need to point to that particular Excel itself, and suppose I want to get whatever tables you want, you can just select those data sets here. Okay, that means here the data sets is nothing but a sheets. Under that Excel, whatever sheets are there, those are available here itself. In Power BI, these we can call it as data sets or tables. Okay, and here selecting these tables and click on load. Okay, if you want to do any modification means go to the transform data, or else you need to click on load. Once you click on load, see these tables are whatever the 4 tables I'm selecting, those tables are loaded into this Power BI. Once it is loaded into the Power BI, once it is loaded into the Power BI, okay, once those 4 tables are loaded into the Power BI, what will happen here it is, see, so those 3 tables, those 4 tables are comes into model. This is a model, right? In this model itself, those tables are come here. Okay. So suppose for example, after loading the data into the model, can we go to the transform data again? Because right at the time of taking, I don't want required to go to the transform data. I need to load the data into the Power BI. So once the load part is completed, then that particular those tables are loaded into the model, right? Can we go to the transform data? After loading the data into the model, can we go to the transform data? Yes, we can go it. Okay. So that means after loading the data also, if you want to go to the transform data and modify the things means you can do it. So where that option is there means, see, this is an option, transform data. Okay. Once the data is loaded into the Power BI, if you want to go to the transform data window, then you have to click on this transform data. If you click on this one, then the new window will open. This window we can call it as transform data window or Power Query window. If you want to do any modification, see here there are a number of options are there. You can do the modification. That means at the time of loading the data, no need to click on transform data and do the modification. After load the data into the model also, if you want to go to that particular transform data, you see, just click on after loading the data into the model, just on the model, you will have an option called transform data, right? By clicking on this also, you can go to the transform data window. There you can do the modifications. Is it clear or not? Understand? That means, so either at the time of selecting a particular data set, either you need to go to the transform data window and do the modification, or else after loading the data into the Power BI models also, you can go to the transform data and do the modifications. Is it clear or not? This is about the first data source. This is the first data source we are connecting, right? See how simple it is in Power BI. So no, for loading the data into the Power BI, no need to write a single line of coding. Just to select that particular part, and whatever credentials are there, those credentials you need to give it. Automatically, those data will be loaded into Power BI. Understand? See, not only this one. If you want to connect it to the SQL server, you can connect it. Okay. So there are three data sources I will explain you: Excel, SQL Server, and folder. Okay. So for SQL Server is very important. Okay. When you connect with the SQL Server, when you connect with the SQL Server, what will happen here? Here you need to give the server name. What is this? Server name you need to give it. So whatever the SQL server name is there, that from the SQL server, there is a server you need to connect it, right? That server name you need to give it here. Okay, that's it. After giving a server name, this is mandatory. Server name is mandatory. That means compulsory. Mandatory means compulsory. You need to give the server name. Once you give the server name in the database is optional. What is that? Database is optional. That means if you know the SQL server, it is very easy to understand all these things. Okay, that means here you need to give the server name. Okay, after giving a server name, here you need to give the database. Here you need to give the database name. This database name is optional. Okay, while we are connecting with the SQL server, okay, first you need to give the server name, and after that you need to give the database name. Then only we can connect to the SQL server database. But here, SQL server, if suppose for example, if that means SQL server is mandatory. That means must and should you need to pass the server name itself. But database name is optional. If you didn't give the database name, then what will happen? Just click on OK. Then automatically under that particular server, there are n number of databases are there. What is that? N number of databases are there. So whichever database you want, see, suppose for example, see, under this particular server, This is a database name. Okay, so that means if you didn't give the database name means it will connect to the server. Under the server, there are different databases are there. In organization level, they are maintaining different database here. Okay, but here for us, we required, so whatever database is there, you have to expand the database. Okay, once you expand it, again under this particular database, you will see the table names here itself or data sets here. Okay, after that, the same. How you connected with Excel? After connecting the Excel, all the sheets is look like a database data sets, right? After showing that whichever data sets you wanted, you can select it. And again the same option, load, transform data and cancel. These three, load, transform data and cancel, will be there for each and every data source. Okay, for each and every data source. That means just you need to connect it to that particular server, and that means, but initial part is only the difference. That means if it is an Excel, it is asking the path where the Excel it is. If you connected with the SQL server, it will ask the server name, database name. But if you connected with Azure, they're having some credentials will be there. After giving credentials, again this window will comes, navigator window will comes. Here you need to select the data set and whichever option you required, either load, transform data or cancel, you can select any of the option and load the data like this. That means this navigator window is common for each and every data source. Okay, understand? Suppose even if you connected with a folder also, even if you connect with Oracle also, okay. First, with that data source, whatever it is there, those main things, those credentials you need to give it. After giving credentials, this navigator window will open for each and every data source itself and select those tables. Suppose I want to load this particular data table and department table and employee table. You have to check it. So whichever tables are required, those tables you need to select it. Again, you need to use these options. That means, see here, I'm giving a database name is optional. Suppose if I'm giving server name as well as database name, what will happen? Let's see. See, actually in the SQL Server, this is the database name. While we are discussing about the SQL Server, you will understand what is server name, what is database name, everything you will understand it. Okay. So that particular database name, while you are connecting with the SQL Server, so if you give the database name is this one and server name is mandatory, right? So server name also you need to give it here. So that means click on connected and server name. Select the server name. Okay. And so previously I'm giving only server name. I didn't give the database name. Then what will happen? So under the server, what are all the databases are there? You will see all the database. If you expand a particular database, under the database, whatever the tables are there, you can see all the tables, right? So, but now I'm giving server name as well as a database. Once I give the server name and database name, if I click on OK, then it will directly connect to the server and database. See here, it will directly open to that particular server and database. Under the database, what tables are there? You can see it all the tables here. Okay, whichever tables you want, see again, this navigator window will open. Whichever tables you want, you can select it and either you can click on load or transform data or cancel. Or else sometimes you see there are n number of tables are there. It is very difficult to identify. Then here in the search bar, you can type the table name itself. Okay, that means whatever data set name is, suppose I want data table. So just I'm typing this one. So see here, date table I'm giving like DAT, that's it. DAT related whatever tables are there under that particular database, you can see it all it here. Okay, and select this particular one, and either you can click on load or transform data, whatever it is you want, you can select it, and that particular table will be loaded into Prometheus. Understand? That means initially while you are connecting with a SQL server, first you need to give the server name. Database name is optional. Okay. So if you didn't give the database name directly under the server, what are all the databases are there, you can see it. If you expand any particular database itself, you can see the tables of that particular database. But if you give the server name and database name, so based on that, under that particular database, whatever the under the particular server, under particular database, whatever tables are there, everything you can see it there. Everything you can see it there itself. Understand clearly? Okay, that means while you are connecting with the SQL server, as per your requirement, you have to do that one. That means if you know about the database name, you can give it. But must and should you need to give the server name, right? Server name you need to give. Database name is optional. Okay. If you didn't give also, it will connect to that particular server. Under that one, whichever database you want, you can select it and load it. Okay. So this is how. So in both ways, I will explain you. If I didn't pass the database name, what will happen? If I pass the database name, what will happen also, I will explain you. Next one is, when you connect with the SQL server, there is an option called, see here, I'm giving a server name, and you need to give, either you need to give the database name or you didn't give it. But after that, there is an option called data connectivity mode. What is that option? Data connectivity mode. In this data connectivity mode, okay, in this data connectivity mode, okay, in this, there are two options are there. One is import and direct query mode. What is that? There are two options are there. One is import, another one is direct query. Okay. So if I'm selecting import, okay, if I'm selecting import, okay, so if I'm selecting import, what will happen? See, this data connectivity mode options are very, very important. Okay. In interview, they will ask how many data connectivity modes are there in Power BI. There are two data connectivity modes are available. One is import mode, another one is direct query mode. If anyone is asking what are the connectivity modes are there in Power BI, means there are two connectivity modes are available. One is import, another one is direct query mode. If you select import, what will happen? Whatever table you have selected, those table data, it will be loaded into the Power BI memory. From the memory itself, every time we can pull it. That means there is no burden to the server, right? SQL server, for there is no button, because first time it will load the data into the Power BI memory. From the memory itself, every time it will pull it. Okay, whatever the data is stored in the Power BI memory, from the Power BI memory itself, everything it will show here. Understand clearly? Okay, that means there is no burden for the particular server itself. But when you connect with a direct query, what will happen is there is no Power BI memory here itself. What is that? There is no Power BI memory. For direct query, there is no Power BI memory. Okay, so that's the reason there is no Power BI memory. So that's the reason you have to select the direct. If you select the direct query, every time it will point the table. Okay, that means every time it will connect to the data source, and whatever table is there, every time those tables are loaded again and again and again. That means it will be, when you select a direct query, it will be impacted for the server. Okay, that means when compared to the import query, direct query performance wise, it is very poor. because there is no memory for Power BI. So that's the reason if you want anything, it will directly connect to that particular table, load it again. Okay, that means if you do any operations in Power BI, it will directly connect to the data source and load it again and again and again and again. But import query is not like that. For the first time only, it will load the data from server to Power BI memory. Okay, and after that, if you want any information on that particular table, it will go to the Power BI memory. From there, it will pull it whatever we require it. That means it won't cause any issues to the server itself. But direct query is not like that. Every time it is pointing to that particular table itself. Okay, that means when compared to the import query, direct query performance wise is very poor. Is it clear or not? Deepak, is it clear or not?
Yeah, clear, sir.
Ajit or Ravindra?
Yes, clear, son.
Okay, this is how we need to connect to that particular SQL server. Okay, these in SQL server, the connectivity modes are very important. Okay, but Vijay, that means only for SQL server only those connectivity modes are there. Is there any connectivity mode for other data source? See, only for SQL server as well as Oracle also the connectivity modes are there. Okay, that means for SQL Server and Oracle, the connectivity modes are available. Okay, so if you connect, that means there's connectivity modes are available there itself. Once the connectivity, so for these two data sources only connectivity modes are available. What is that? What are those data sources? SQL Server and Oracle. For these only. Remaining data sources directly based on that you can select it and get the data. Understand? Is it clear or not? Okay. So very important question. What are the connectivity modes are there in Power BI means immediately you have to say the important direct query mode. Understand? So and one more thing is not only selected a tables. Sometimes while you are connecting with the SQL server, they are giving query. They are giving query. At that time, table is not there. They are giving some select query and everything. How you need to run that particular select query means here in advanced option is there, right? If you expand this advanced option, you will have a text box is there. Here it is, right? This is a text box. In this text box, whatever queries, SQL query is the select query is there. That select query you need to put it here itself. Okay, that means while you are connecting with the SQL server, not only selecting a tables, sometimes you need to give the select query also. That particular select query you need to put it here itself. In this text box itself, you need to put it and click on OK. This text box will run like a SSMS. That means SQL Server Management Studio. That means in the SQL Server, how you will run those queries, this will act like that only. That's the reason if you have any queries, select queries are there, those you can put it at. That means in Power BI, while you are connecting with the SQL Server, there are two ways we can connect it. One is either you can select a table. Okay, direct table you can select it. Sometimes you are writing a queries. Okay, select queries you are writing. Those select queries, how we can run it in Power BI means you have to put those queries under in this text box itself. Okay, this text box is available under the advanced option. If you expand this advanced option, you will see this text box will be there. Okay, in this text box itself you have to paste that query. So if it is not related to query, then directly connected to that particular server and particular database and select the table itself. If it is a query only, then only you need to go to the advanced option. First, you need to give the server name and database name. After that, you need to give the query in this box itself. Select query. Okay. If there is no select query, directly I need to select, then no need to come into this advanced options. Okay. Directly give the server name and database name, connect it and select the tables and load the data. If there is any select queries means, first you need to give the server name and database name. In the advanced options, here you need to give that select query here itself. And once you give the select query, then automatically that query will run it, and what result, that means what table data is getting, that table will be loaded into Power BI. Understand clearly or not? This is how completely about the SQL Server. Understand? Okay. So next option is folder. That folder related, that we can discuss in the transform data. Okay. In the transform data also we can use it. There I will explain. Understand? Next one is see. So no need, sometimes no need to go to the Excel related, because here itself that Excel workbook is there. Excel workbook is nothing but a data source. Excel data source itself. So either you can go here and select the Excel workbook, or else click on this Excel workbook also you can connect it. Okay. Next one is SQL Server. You know how to connect with the SQL Server, just now only explained, right? Okay. Next one is enter data. What is enter data will do? If you want to create a data set in Power BI, then you have to use an option called enter data. That means in Power BI, up to now, how you are creating a data set means you have to select a data source and table is loaded. That means that this is how you can create a data set in Power BI. But another option is enter data. By using enter data also, we can create a data set. That means in the enter data, you can create a column, you can create a rows, or anything you can do it in the Power BI. Okay. So tomorrow I will explain you how the enter data table is created and how we can create a new columns, how we can create a new rows, how we can delete a columns, and how we can insert a new row, how we can delete a new row, everything that I will explain you in the tomorrow's class. Is it clear or not?